One of your most frequently asked questions about getting into the laundromat business is, can I believe the seller? Are the representations accurate? What kind of due diligence do I need to perform to make sure that what the seller is representing to me makes a lot of sense? So this is a complicated topic, but I'm going to give you the top lines to help you on your way toward performing adequate due diligence on an existing laundromat for purchase. So let's face it, when you have a cash business, there's not always ample records to inspect. We all would love to trust each other inherently, but I think it makes a lot of sense to do your own homework to try to verify as best you can the representations of the seller. So we're going to talk about the income, but before I do that, I want to just give you an insider tip. Look at the expenses too. Laundromats are valued based on the net income. So it's not just the top line revenue, it's the expenses. And in my experience, if a seller is going to fudge a little bit, quite often it's underrepresenting the expenses. So when you're looking at a store, make sure that all the expenses are being reflected. Back to revenue. There's a couple things that you can do to try to corroborate the revenue being represented to you by the seller. One thing is to do some basically forensic accounting. See what records they do have. They may have a shoebox full of receipts, they may have 2 sets of books, they may have no books, or they may have computerized records that are coming right from their payment system or the software that's on the washers and dryers. So you're going to see a full range of good, bad, and ugly when it comes to those records. But you can certainly put your hands on everything that you can. So that includes any of the performance records, certainly any bank deposits, any bank statements related to the store. A copy of the tax returns would generally give you a floor as to what you could expect for revenue. So it's not perfect. None of these due diligence tactics are perfect, but try to put your hands on much of the paperwork as you can. Another common tactic for due diligence on a laundromat is simply through an observation. Watching the store. I've had members that'll sit in the car and count customers going in on a Saturday, and then on a Tuesday, and then on a Wednesday, and just get a sense of, well, how many customers are coming through that door in a typical week. That's great. That's sort of an old school analog technique, which can be very effective. But increasingly, I see members get creative. Things like, well, if we're signing a deal here and I've got a due diligence period built into my offer, can I have access to your camera system for a week or 2 or 3? Can I observe the store on my own laptop and just get a sense of how does this store perform? Do I see the business in the store? So that observation enhanced in recent years with the technology is another tactic that you can use. Another long-time common tactic for due diligence is co-collections. In other words, all right, we've agreed to make a sale. Mr. Seller, we're going to go shoulder to shoulder for each of the next 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to go into the store and we're going to collect the store together. We're going to dump the coin boxes. We're going to empty the coin changer. We're going to check the records on the card-operated system. Whatever is in place, we're going to look at it together. Is that foolproof? No, but it's just one more technique that you can do to try to get to where you're comfortable with the representations of the seller. Next up is what I call a utility consumption analysis. We don't have time to get through all the nitty-gritty of that, but essentially there's a direct relationship between the utilities, water, sewer, gas, and electric, being consumed at a laundromat and the corresponding revenue, right? So if you can start to look at, especially the water, it gives you a real sense of how many washes are being done. You should know what the vend price per wash is. You start to extrapolate what that utility consumption equates to for that store. So in addition to an observation, in addition to inspecting the records, in addition to a co-collection, you're also going to want to look at the utility bills and get some sense of it. I'd ask for 3 years of utility bills so you can see any kind of trends. If the water consumption is going like this, that tells you one thing. If the water consumption is going like that, it tells you another. So it really just trying to paint the picture of what's really happening in that store. So let's assume that you're in a position where you can perform as many of those tactics as possible. Last but not least, I'm seeing more and more of your peers putting some kind of recourse or clawback into that buy-sell agreement. In other words, If we're 60 days in, 90 days in, and it appears that you've overrepresented the revenue by a certain percentage, that there's some kind of recourse on your part. I'm not saying a lot of sellers will go for that, but it's at least worth asking for, just to give you as many opportunities to make sure that the revenue is what it's being represented to be and the net income is what it's represented to be. So there's no foolproof method to proving what it's worth in the due diligence process, but if you follow these 4 or 5 techniques, it's going to get you pretty close to being comfortable with what the seller's representations are. So thanks for joining us at Laundromat FAQ, and we'll see you next time.